Susan Glasser, it comes against the backdrop of the thing that has consumed Washington for weeks now. The very focus of your piece here in The New Yorker, which is on the continued fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein case files. It's titled, "Trump Redefines the Washington Scandal." And in it, you write in part, quote, "The scandal is not the revelation that Trump was friends with a sexual monster who exploited underage women, since that's not a revelation. Nor is it that the president lied to the American public, something he does with remarkable frequency. No, the novelty here is that millions of Americans who knew that Trump was friends with such a horrid man and voted for him anyway now appear to have decided that in a choice between Trump and a favorite conspiracy theory, they may just stick with the conspiracy theory." The nearly unwavering fealty of Trump's MAGA base has powered him through all of his previous scandals. What does it reveal about the state of this political Mesa alliance that a botched cover-up of his ties to Jeffrey Epstein might be the thing that finally drives a wedge between them? You're basically asking here the question that I have been asking since we all started on this in 2015, which is, when will the laws of political gravity finally apply? Is this it?
Well, I would say anyone who has a definitive answer hasn't been watching the story for the last 10 years. If January 6th is not enough, if challenging an election is not enough that you lost, then obviously we don't really have conventional laws of political gravity. But I think this point about Jeffrey Epstein, first of all, the idea that it's news now, right? It bears the hallmarks in many ways of the kind of scandal we've seen a million times. I mean, Q Whitewater, Q Watergate, anything that involves really not just the underlying issue, but the cover-up, the questions. We've got the anonymous finger pointing and shouting behind closed doors of administration officials. We've got the president desperate to change the story. So on the surface, it feels like one of those Washington scandals. We know how that works. But I think what's fascinating to me here is that it's a story about Donald Trump, and is he a leader or a follower of this MAGA movement? And, right now you see him, I think, paying the price for chasing around lies and conspiracy theories for years because he thought that's what the people wanted. And, I just think it says something truly, deeply awful about the state of our politics, right? I mean, this is the story of all stories. I mean, let's talk about that Paramount merger. Let's talk about, it's not just a president who wants to meddle, who would love to control the press, as all presidents do. Donald Trump and his lawyers are at war with the very principle of independent agencies. How can you have a business community in this country that thinks it's okay when the rule of law depends upon the president himself? I mean, there's so many more important issues on some level to talk about. It tells you everything that this is the conspiracy theory that we're talking about.
Well, and David Drucker, again, especially Susan, makes a great point. Like, this is the story instead of the FCC and everything that's going on there, Paramount, because NBC reporting has shown, and we repeated it time and again, NBC reporting has shown that there's no there with the Epstein files. It's something that Tom Winter's been saying for 2 years. It's something that Ken Delaney's been saying. It's something that David Rhodes been saying. That said, don't tell that to the MAGA base, because, of course, if the media is saying nothing to see here as well, that doesn't exactly help President Trump. But I want to split something. Maybe you can help explain this for us. There's a new Gallup poll out that shows the president down to 37% overall. But those numbers are driven completely by the independent numbers falling off the cliff. You look at the Republican numbers. The president is still sitting at 91% among Republicans in a poll that has him at 37%. So if he's sitting at 91%, again, that's the line they're looking at inside the White House. So you have, yes, very loud MAGA influencers that are out talking about it. You have members of Congress who are talking about it, Republican members of Congress. And these Republican members of Congress are hearing from constituents. But if you look at that number where the president's sitting at about 90% among Republicans, they're listening to a small subset of those Republicans, the loudest Republicans, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And sometimes we forget or we don't emphasize enough that the Republican electorate is bigger than the MAGA base. It's just that MAGA base gives the president an unusually high floor. So you look at those numbers with the independents. It's why the Republicans who are actually on the ballot next year are concerned but it's a reason why the president doesn't necessarily have to be concerned. What I think is very interesting about this, though, and Susan was talking about this to some degree here, is that Trump is an unusual political figure who is able to sort of hold together a base of anti-establishment voters, irregular voters, along with a lot of normie, regular Republican voters, even if a lot of those are former Democrats because of his command of cultural issues. But one, he's been able to do that in part because he doesn't just lead the base, he takes cues from them. It's part of the reason he's in this Epstein mess. I don't know that the president cared about it either way, but when he sees an issue that is resonant with his base, he just sort of collects it. But the other thing is it shows us what the party is going to have to deal with in 2028 in particular. When you're going to have another Republican nominee, they're not going to be Donald Trump. And how do they hold together this coalition that Trump has been able to build, but has been so much based around him and who he is? And look, we've got some recent history. In 2008 and 2012, President Barack Obama is able to put together, as you were discussing earlier, Joe, the coalition of the Ascendant. Democrats just thought that that was theirs, that he created it and that they could take possession of it. And little by little, it either splinters a little or it thins out as voters change their mind or irregular voters decide that, this politician is just like the people that came before Obama. I'm going to stay home. This is something that the next Republican nominee is going to have to balance. How do I make normal voters who don't want chaos and just want good governance happy while keeping...
In a gripping development that has seized Washington's attention, the ongoing fallout from the Jeffrey Epstein case has cast a long shadow over former President Donald Trump, redefining the nature of political scandals in the Capitol. Susan Glasser, in a recent piece for The New Yorker titled, "Trump Redefines the Washington Scandal," argues that the controversy surrounding Trump's ties to Epstein is not rooted in new revelations, but in the persistent loyalty of his MAGA base, which appears unshaken despite his association with a known sexual predator. The scandal, Glasser notes, lies not in Trump's friendship with Epstein, a fact long known, or his frequent falsehoods, but in the willingness of millions of supporters to overlook these ties, potentially favoring conspiracy theories over accountability. This raises a critical question. Could a botched cover-up of these connections finally fracture the steadfast allegiance of Trump's base, which has weathered numerous controversies, from election challenges to January 6th? The Epstein case, a sordid saga of exploitation and crime, has resurfaced as a lightning rod for political discourse. Unlike traditional Washington scandals, reminiscent of Watergate or Whitewater, this controversy is marked by a familiar pattern of cover-ups, anonymous finger-pointing, and a president eager to shift the narrative. Yet, what sets this apart is its reflection of Trump's dual role as both a leader and a follower of the MAGA movement. Glasser suggests that Trump's entanglement in conspiracy theories, which he has long amplified to resonate with his base, may now be backfiring. The Epstein files, repeatedly debunked by NBC reporting as lacking substantial new evidence, continue to fuel speculation among Trump supporters, who distrust media assurances that there is no there there. This skepticism, coupled with Trump's attempts to control the narrative, underscores a deeper malaise in American politics, where conspiracy theories often overshadow substantive issues. Adding complexity, a new Gallup poll reveals Trump's approval rating at a low 37%, driven by a sharp decline among independents. However, among Republicans, he retains a robust 90 to 91% approval, highlighting the resilience of his core supporters. This dichotomy suggests that while loud voices within the MAGA base, amplified by influencers and some Republican members of Congress, push the Epstein narrative, they represent a vocal minority. The broader Republican electorate, though larger than the MAGA faction, remains firmly behind Trump, giving him a high floor of support. This dynamic poses a challenge for the Republican Party looking toward 2028, when a new nominee will inherit a coalition built around Trump's unique blend of anti-establishment fervor and cultural resonance. Balancing the demands of deep state, skeptics with those seeking stable governance will be a tightrope act for future candidates. The Epstein case also reveals a rare moment of bipartisan convergence, though not for constructive reasons. Republicans, driven by constituents convinced of a cover-up, and Democrats, seizing the opportunity to exploit Trump's vulnerability, find common ground in criticizing the White House's handling of the issue. This harmonic convergence, as described, is less about shared policy goals and more about mutual interest in political advantage. For Democrats, the case, centered on a figure deceased for 6 years, offers a chance to needle Trump, while Republicans grapple with a base that demands answers. The broader implications, however, point to a troubling erosion of trust in independent institutions, with Trump's attacks on agencies like the FCC and his legal battles challenging the rule of law itself. As Washington remains fixated on this scandal, the Epstein saga underscores not just Trump's political vulnerabilities, but the fractured state of American discourse, where conspiracy often trumps clarity.